Hello, okay, for those of you returning to the channel, welcome back, and for those of you that are new here, that have just stumbled upon this video, then thank you for joining me. And if you find yourself wanting to stick around to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on about film and TV, then please hit that subscribe button, it will mean an awful lot to me. And yeah, welcome to my spoiler-free review of The Odyssey, written and directed by Christopher Nolan. It's an adaptation of Homer's ancient Greek epic poem, The Odyssey. And I've never read the poem, I've never read The Odyssey, but I've been super excited for this. It's one of my anticipated movies of the year, and a lot of that is down to Christopher Nolan as a director. And I grew up admiring movies like Jason and the Argonauts and Clash of the Titans. You know, these are movies that I grew up with admiring. They are movies that kind of fueled my love for film. You know, the ones that, you know, had the special effects by Ray Harryhausen. And, you know, they still hold up today, those movies, when it comes to the effects. And they are movies that kind of just blew me away. And so the fact that we had someone like Christopher Nolan taking on a story like this, and with him saying in interviews that, you know, he was inspired by those movies and those, you know, special effects that were brought to life by Ray Harryhausen, that just got me incredibly excited for this. So The Odyssey follows the King of Ithaca as he struggles to return home after the Trojan War. His voyage becomes a years-long fight for survival, forcing him to confront violent storms, mythical creatures, hostile gods, and impossible moral choices while his family awaits in uncertainty. So, right from the opening frames of this movie, I was immediately transported to this beach outside the walls of Troy, where you've got the wooden horse and you have the sea crashing into it, and I felt like I was there. I was transported to this beach where I am witnessing this horse just sort of submerged within the sand, and you can almost feel sort of the spray of the ocean sort of touching your skin. And this immersion is all created just from the first opening shots of the movie, and it had me grinning, it had me beaming, it had me so excited for what was to come. And I'm like, yeah, come on, fuck yeah, you know, bring it on. And it's all achieved through the gorgeous cinematography. This film, from a visual perspective, throughout is just simply gorgeous. You've got Hoyt van Hoytema returning you as the cinematographer, and this movie was just simply beautiful. You know, there is so much depth there within the visuals. You could feel and sense the scale and scope of its story and the world in which our characters inhabit, as well as the gorgeous sound design that just elevates the experience even more. It's a thunderous, pounding, resonant sound design that just does so much to immerse you into this world and into this story. And so yeah, immediately from those first few opening shots, the first few frames within this movie, I am immediately transported into this world with these characters, and I've remained locked in for the entire 3 hours, or just short of 3 hours, of this journey, of this story. This was an experience that transported me back to being a kid again. You know, it reminded me of watching those movies for the first time, like Jason and the Argonauts, and just being in awe at what was being brought to life within the frame, and just sort of the wonder of it all, and just like, wow, you know, thinking, how did they do that? Like, how did they achieve that? At the same time, just being so kind of emotionally involved with its story, with its characters, and just being amazed at what's being brought to life, and even, you know, evoking this kind of sense of dread and horror. You know, this is what I feel like, for me personally, The Odyssey is one of those movies that I would call a milestone in cinema. Not everyone might feel the same way, but for me, it is one of those experiences. It was an experience that took me on a ride. It reminded me why I fell in love with film, and I was just immersed within its story, and I believed in everything that was being brought to life within the frame, to the point where, you know, it was evoking these different emotions from me, whether that be sadness or horror. The Cyclops scene, by the way, is just incredible. It is a unsettling scene, and it's beautifully achieved by how it's lit, you know, with the use of shadows and how much you do see of the Cyclops, and the tension that's created within that moment is just incredible. And that was one of the many aspects that I just found myself really admiring within this experience, and that is how Christopher Nolan really kind of built this tension within many moments throughout the experience, whatever it be the Cyclops scene, or the build-up to the siege of Troy, or the scene with the sirens. These are all moments that have this incredible tension that is built up throughout them, that just have you, or did me anyway, on the edge of my seat. They got the blood pumping, and it's all down to how these moments were executed, how these moments were edited, how they played out, accompanied by the gorgeous visuals and that thunderous, pounding, resonant sound design that is just, like I said, the sound design just does a wonderful job at kind of really elevating this experience and elevating those moments to the point where, along with the gorgeous score, by the way, by Ludwig Göransson, which has this kind of drum-like, tribal drum-like approach to it, you know, you can kind of feel your heart pumping along with sort of those beats, those sounds, and just how the moment sort of evolves, and it just swallows you up. The film just does a wonderful job at swallowing you up within these moments, and with, you know, whether it be a moment of emotion between two characters, or moments of horror like with the sirens or the Cyclops scene, you know, it's just one of those experiences that does so much to evoke an array of emotions that puts you on an experience, and it felt like good old traditional cinema. And it just reminded me so much of why I fell in love with film. The scene with the sirens is, again, you know, it's a moment of horror. In many ways, it's quite unsettling. And I just love how that moment was brought to life through the visuals, as well as the lack of sound. Because I felt like the lack of sound within that moment kind of just really intensified the horror. And Matt Damon's performance within that moment, you could feel it. You could feel the pain that that character is going through. Matt Damon in this movie is incredible. And this is not, you know, this is coming from someone, I wouldn't call myself a massive fan of Matt Damon. I think he's a fine actor. But for me, within this movie, The Odyssey, Matt Damon blew me away. He was absolutely incredible within this role, in how he brought the character to life. I believed in this character, and I absolutely admired in how he brought this character to life. And there are moments like with the sirens where, like I said, you could really truly feel the pain that this character is going through, and, you know, along with sort of the use of sound, the visuals, and the performance, it just all sort of intensifies the horror and just elevates the moment. And when it comes to the performances, again, it's another element within this movie that kind of just really, you know, adds to the immersion, that allows me to be immersed within this story and within this world. Everyone, apart from one, and I will get to that person in a moment, but everyone delivers you when it comes to bringing these characters to life in a way that, you know, for me, kind of allows that kind of the more fantastical element of its story to feel real, even though that's achieved anyway through how those more fantastical elements, like the mythical creatures, are brought to life, you know, through practical effects like puppetry and animatronics and all of that, which is just simply gorgeous. By the way, the scene with the witch was just like incredible. And there's no CGI within that moment. From what I've read and from what I witnessed unfold within the frame, there was no CGI. And again, it's another moment that is horrifying, that is unsettling, it's creepy, and it's all done through practical effects, like things that actually exist within the frame, and it makes you believe that this witch is doing what she is doing within that moment. And it allows, it sells the horror, and it just makes it feel so much more real. But back to performances, because, this is one of those movies that I could just talk about, and I could go all over the place about it because there is so much that I admired. But yes, the performances, whether it be Lupita Nyong'o or John Leguizamo, I think that's how you pronounce his name, he's incredible. I haven't seen him in anything in recent years, and it was great to see him here as this blind, faithful servant to Odysseus. And he does a great job here of bringing the character to life. Robert Pattinson is superb. Anne Hathaway is amazing. And that minor niggle I did have was with Tom Holland as Odysseus' son. His performance is okay. It kind of does the job. But I couldn't help but feel like it was maybe miscast. In some ways, I can understand why he was cast, because, the character maybe needs to have that kind of the vulnerability about him, and say perhaps that lack of confidence maybe, and that's kind of there. Tom Holland does a pretty good job at conveying that, but at the same time, all I was seeing was Peter Parker Spider-Man. And, comparing him to someone like Robert Pattinson, who, ever since Twilight, I've never once watched Robert Pattinson in a movie and just immediately thought, oh, Edward. And the reason being is, for me personally, Robert Pattinson is a very transformative actor. Like, he can take on these roles and become the character that he's bringing to life, and he is just incredibly transformative. Like, you forget that it's Robert Pattinson bringing the character to life. With Tom Holland, I just felt like he lacked the range to sort of really kind of, for me anyway, detach away from the characters that we already know him as, whatever, be it Peter Parker from Spider-Man. And there was just something very kind of flat in many aspects when it comes to his performance. And I could be one of the very few people who feel like this. I really don't know. I've kind of stayed away from reviews and other people's thoughts on this movie until I watched the film myself. So I'm not sure if I'm on my own here when it comes to Tom Holland. Like I said, I've never read the poem. I've never read the story. And maybe, Christopher Nolan, they saw something else in him that served what they wanted when it came to the story. And I do kind of get that with certain aspects of its character maybe. But overall for me, when it comes to the cast, Tom Holland was the only one that kind of really stood out to me. And even though he serves, he does a fine job, he does an okay job, among everyone else, he kind of stands out. And I just admired how there was almost like this poetry throughout how the entire movie played out. There was this poetry sort of built in within the narrative, and how this narrative was constructed. With how each scene, how each moment just plays into the next moment, and how each scene just plays into the next scene. It has this sort of poetry about it that I just found incredibly mesmerizing and hypnotic and immersive. Like, just the way in which the story is told. The film is told in a non-linear narrative, and just how that sort of comes to life within the frame and how it plays out, there is just, like I said, something very mesmerizing about it. And I think it works for the type of story they are bringing to life here. And it's as a result of all these different elements, whether it be the gorgeous score, the sound design, the cinematography, the performances. It's all these different elements, and including the writing, that help bring to life a mesmerising and immersive experience. One that kind of swallows you up within not just an epic story, but also a personal one that I found myself emotionally connecting to and relating to. It's very epic, but it's how they sort of explore these themes that our characters are going through, you know, like with Odysseus, for example, or, you know, longing for home, and then, you know, going through what he's going through mentally and emotionally due to what he's experienced within the war, and just how that's brought to life visually with how the narrative is constructed. I just found to be incredibly compelling and incredibly immersive. And the gorgeous score by Ludwig Göransson just does, again, you know, like every other element within this movie, does so much to elevate this experience and really kind of conveys and captures what our characters are going through emotionally and mentally, and sort of what they are exploring here thematically within his story. It's a gorgeous score by Ludwig Göransson, and like every other element within this film, just does so much to add to the immersion of this experience. So yeah, they are my thoughts on Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. I love this movie. I loved it. I had a few minor niggles with it. I mentioned the one. I don't even think the others are really worth mentioning. And yeah, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend you watch it on the biggest screen possible. I watched it in IMAX and it just looked gorgeous. And I could talk about this film for hours, but you know, I'm going to stop now. They are my thoughts on The Odyssey, and I will be giving The Odyssey they are my thoughts on The Odyssey. But what did you guys think? Have you seen it yet? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Then please let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And like I said, if you want to stick around to watch future movie reviews from some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit that subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. And just another big thank you to everyone that has supported the channel, whether it be liking, commenting, subscribing. It means the world to me. I'm a little bit busy at the moment when it comes to reality and life, and so I'm seeing a lot of the comments. I'm not ignoring you, I just haven't had time to sit down and comment, but I will be getting around to that now over the next couple of days. But yeah, thank you to everyone that has supported the channel. It just means the world to me. And that's it from me for now, guys. Thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be catching you guys soon.